Hi and welcome back to my resource guarding video series. This is hand feeding, and hand feeding is my default go-to with resource guarding. It's a cornerstone of resource guarding, whether I'm trying to prevent it or whether I'm trying to train it out. I always default back to hand feeding, and it doesn't matter what the resource guarding is against. A lot of people don't realize that resource guarding crosses borders. So if you have a dog that resource guards food, for instance, then it resource guards people, dogs, toys, places, crates, beds, resource guards yards. Always assume that it's across the board. Even if you don't see signs, and even if there are no symptoms that the dog's doing that, often you find years later that a trigger or a stressor will set a dog off and it will start resource guarding something else. So often I hear from people who say, oh, my dog's 5 years old, it's suddenly starting to resource guard toys. It's growling when I go to take them, and I don't understand why. It's never ever had an issue before. And when you talk to them, you end up finding out in most cases that somewhere down the line, say it was a puppy and it was resource guarding food, and they trained it for the food. The problem is they didn't train it for all the other things. And they're hiding in the background. And what happens is somewhere down the line, if the right stressor or the right trigger comes across, that the dog reverts to that. And that could be just simply something like changing a home, a new person in or out, you know, a baby, another dog in, an old dog out, something like that. There's a stressor, there's a trigger, and the dog reverts to something that's natural. And resource guarding is perfectly natural. In the dog world, it's perfectly acceptable. It's in our world that we don't accept it, and in our world we don't see it as natural. But for a dog it is. So it's something the dog will go back to. So I look at it two ways. I look at a preventative side, and I look at it as a training out side, a fixing side if you like. So with new puppies, I have a slightly different setup or protocol that I go through, because I'm looking to prevent it from ever occurring. So I train across the board for it, but we're talking hand feeding here, and no matter what I'm training against, hand feeding is going to be part of that. So hand feeding is really important. But like I said, I do puppies a little bit different. So we'll start with puppies. Tenchi. Tenchi's the only dog around, so I'll use him for it. Up. Good. So we're going to assume he's a puppy. Now the first thing we want to do with a puppy is begin to build a bond and begin to build trust. So hand feeding lets us do that. So I'm going to take, what I do is I take half of every meal and I put that to one side, and I'm going to hand feed a dog with it. The other half is going to go into a bowl at each meal, and I'm going to put that into a bowl, and I'm going to run the dog through the food etiquette series that you'll find in our files. Tenchi. So half will go to hand feeding, half will go to teaching food etiquette series. Now the food etiquette series will teach leave it, an automatic leave it, calmness, a sit. It'll teach things like respecting space around a person with food, respecting space around food, respecting space around other dogs with food, and it goes right through to feeding multiple dogs and teaching dogs to share food. The hand feeding, we're going to use this to teach a bond and trust. Like I said, we're going to teach the dog that this hand is perfectly safe. No matter what it's doing, how fast it's moving, this hand is safe. It's never going to hurt this dog. I'm safe. This space is safe. That's what we're going to teach the dog. Good boy. We're also going to teach the dog to luring. So we're going to teach the dog to follow the hand, which helps with focus. Now this is a puppy. What does a puppy need? It needs to know its name. Tenchi. Yes, good boy. So I'm going to teach it name. And I'm going to teach it to focus. Now name and focus is in the file, so you'll see how we do that. But I'm going to, yes, good boy. I'm going to teach name and I'm going to teach focus. So I'm going to start teaching the dog. This is implementing. Nothing in life is free. So I'm teaching this dog that it has to earn every single bite, every morsel this dog has to earn. Food is not this dog's, because food to a dog is its most valuable resource. I don't want the dog controlling food. I control the food. And the dog trusts me and respects me enough to do that and doesn't need to guard. Remember, resource guarding has its roots steeped in lack of trust. A dog guards against its owner because it doesn't trust the owner. It doesn't trust that that resource is always going to be available. So we need to build trust. So again, basic training, I can lure. So sit, stand, sit, stand, stand, good, sit, stand, good boy. So we're going to teach these things. Okay, off. So that's how we're going to do it for a puppy. Half of every meal goes into hand feeding, the other half goes into food etiquette series. And we're going to build a really good bond, a lot of trust. We're going to build luring, basics, focus, names, sits, stands, downs, those types of things. We're going to implement nothing in life is free. This dog is going to learn that everything this dog gets, it has to earn. So that's really important. And this goes a long way to ever preventing it. I've never raised a puppy that has ever shown signs of resource guarding, because I've done this, and then across the line for all the other aspects, I've also taught this to the dog, that, you know, it doesn't own it, it's always going to be there. So I've built trust, I've built bond. We've had I make sure there's a really good understanding between me and the dog. So it learns that these things don't need guarding. So I've never had an issue. I have had fosters and I've had rescues that have come to me with resource guarding issues at different things, and we've had to, train that out. All right, so moving on to an older dog. So we'll move on to a rescue or a shelter dog. They're often at risk of having some form of resource guarding, but from day one what I do is I set out preventative measures, and so that helps whether they've got it or not, to help either prevent it or train it out. And then I alter the training depending on what I find on, down the line. So if I see that they do have one down the line, I might make some adjustments. But initially what I'm going to do is I'm going to set out a 4-week period with this older dog, and I'm going to immediately hand feed it everything. I'm going to set in place that nothing in life is free, so the dog's going to earn it. But I'm not going to put it on the food etiquette series for now. I'm just simply going to hand feed it, build a good bond. I'm going to build trust in. I'm going to start using nothing in life is free to teach it basics, to help train, wanted behaviours in and unwanted behaviours out. Now, after 4 weeks, as long as there's no other issues come up and it's all safe to do so, I'm then going to take half of the meal amount, and I'm going to start putting that into a bowl and running the dog through the food etiquette series that you'll find in the files, and we'll keep going like that. Now, if I have a dog that has resource guarding issues, again, no matter what its resource guarding, I'm going to start hand feeding, and I'm going to do the same thing as I would with an older dog. I'm going to hand feed all the meals to it, and I'm going to implement a nothing in life is free. Now, we're assuming this is safe to do so. If the dog is highly reactive, highly aggressive, we're going to muzzle it, and we're going to seek professional help if you do not know what you're doing. And you're going to get professional help in. You're not going to put yourself at risk, you're not going to put your family at risk. That is the number one with it, all right? If it's not so bad and or you're comfortable and you know what you're doing, we're going to hand feed everything for 4 weeks. Now, if it deteriorates within that 4 weeks, you're going to immediately seek help. You're going to get a professional. You're going to ensure your safety and your family's safety is the number one priority. If after 4 weeks it hasn't improved at all, you're going to do the same thing. Get a professional in, get some help. Now, within 4 weeks, it should be improving. It might only be slight. There may have been some ebbs and flows, but you should always see some improvement within 4 weeks. If it's improved and it's safe to do so, you're going to take the dog through food etiquette series, and so you're going to use half the food for that, half the food to continue to hand feed. And you're going to continue to do this until such time that the dog has completed the food etiquette series at 100%. All right, so that's really important. And if the dog is resource guarding other things, you're going to be working on that. We will have videos out for what to do for other things. So if the dog's resource guarding a crate, for instance, or people or other dogs or something, we'll have videos out for those across the board. But hand feeding is always going to be your #1 go-to. It's always going to be the default. I hope that helps. We'll see you in the next one.